Good afternoon. I hope everybody had a amazing Thanksgiving holiday weekend. I'm waiting on Mr. Rick Hale, my co-host, to pop in here. I think he just logged in. But let's just throw gratitude where gratitude is deserved. I mean, we're thankful to be in business with all of you, and it's just a moment in time on a calendar that reminds us all what to be grateful for. And I'm grateful for the real estate industry because I think our industry is so unique and amazing that it allows us to work, but still be able to be present with family and friends when Thanksgiving comes. Mr. Hale, I'm grateful for you as well. What are you grateful for?
You're safe and sound back from your European gallivant,
Right,
man. What a cool trip.
It was a very cool trip. I'm excited to be home and back at it. This is off topic, but when you leave town, I think about 10 days it's perfect, because after 10 you start feeling like you're missing out on something and you got to get back, but and it takes 3 to relax anyway. So anyway,
there you go.
Well, let's jump in.
For you.
So Rick, I'm going to ask you a big question. What does the real estate market historically do the week of Thanksgiving?
I mean, seasonality dips in, people are distracted. They have families in town. They take them either off market short term. I mean, there are a number of things, but it's hyper seasonal
And certainly disruptive for the week, right? I think we're going to see that here in these numbers, right? So You're looking at 603 active properties a week ago in Fulton County, and we went down to 370. So what that tells me is most real estate agents didn't put any new listings on the market over the weekend, right? Nobody wanted to put their house live over Thanksgiving, and very few people have set their listings to go live as of Monday morning when Steven, our cyberbacker, pulled these numbers, right? So I'm not shocked. I think that's pretty historically normal. But if you didn't know that and you looked at these weeks numbers and all of a sudden we had 370, you might panic. But I just remind everybody, it is absolutely normal to have a disruption in numbers and trends based on a holiday, right?
Yep. And it extends into Christmas. So it's not uncommon that they wait another 25, 30 days and wait till the new year. So
yeah,
it's just reality. I tell you this, the people that do lists are motivated to sell or they're vacant. So those are the two scenarios. Well, just simply put, I mean, if you list your house now, you really want to sell, or you really need to sell. And or it's a vacant property where there's no, your holidays aren't impeded.
Yeah. So Rick, what would you say to a seller? Like, let's talk about the cost of waiting. So a seller might say, hey, I'm going to wait till February to put my house on the market. What would you say to a seller right now that was saying that?
Well, I'd ask about their motivation, their tolerance for the imposition, and then the reality of competitive advantages. And if anytime you can hit the market before all of the competitors race to the starting gate, you get a head start on it. So although, the flip side true too, that the people that are looking are very sincere and motivated during the holidays. But that number goes down a little bit, but you definitely eliminate the casual looker. If people are giving up their time and energy to go look, I mean, and it's a great time where employers are less, I guess, concerned with productivity. They're usually more lax with, available days off and personal days. So it can be the ideal perfect storm for the right house, the right buyer, and the right seller.
Yeah. And I mean, you got to play with what you got, right? So I also think if I was talking to a seller today, I could say, hey, listen, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but let's say prices went backwards 5% by the end of first quarter next year. And you've got a $400,000 house, that could cost you $20,000 waiting until March instead of selling it today. I'm using what I got, right?
You can still frame it. The reason they would be resistant is probably around family and imposition, but you can, make an appointment only. And, even if it's slightly restricted, but still available, you may still have opportunities that are better than waiting.
Absolutely. What about a buyer? What would the cost of waiting be to a buyer right now, Rick?
Well, depending on supply and demand and the energy a seller feels around their confidence that it'll sell for what, they need it to, there could be a competitive advantage for a buyer too. If things slow down and showings dip, which is extremely common, you may hit the perfect storm where they hit a certain number of days of their threshold for tolerance for when they start to, turn from overconfident to slightly confident to concerned. And so depending on their mood, that'll dictate the energy in which they negotiate.
Yeah, I was thinking about this morning. When the pandemic happened, Carolina, my wife, and we decided to play pick 'em with the stock market, and we'd spend a little money picking these stocks, right? And you realize you're always trying to buy when it's low and sell when it's high, but it's virtually impossible to actually time any market, right? So if somebody's saying I want to wait, that means they think they're timing the market. Well, if you looked at the stocks I picked, Rick, you would probably get out of business with me because I'm not a very good stock picker. But here's what I know. I actually probably at the moment I'm down on those stocks of what I chose. But if I hold on to them for 5 years, I guarantee you it's still going to turn out to be a better investment long term, right? Because I held on to them for 5 years. I think that's the same conversation with any buyer right now. If you're honestly trying to time the market, you're probably not going to be very good at it. But if you plan on buying this house and holding it for 5 years, it's going to turn out to be probably one of the best decisions you've made. And you got to come up with your story. Like, what's your analogy? What's your story? I think right now, skill sets and conversations and dialogues is really what we're really trying to pour into our agents around. How do we get these dialogues into your hands so you can go talk to those buyers and sellers, because they need the conversation right now, right?
Well, and you may not get wholesale buy-in from a buyer to go full speed into, 2 or 3 days of straight looking if they're uncertain, but this could be the perfect season to initiate a conversation and a consultation so that you're at the starting line, at least the minute you see something. And then back to skills-based real estate, once you understand their needs, wants, and their, the circumference of what their geographic area is, man, it's your job to wake up every day, the hunter, go find something and go, hey, based on our conversation last week, I know you said you weren't quite ready, but do you have time to go look at these 2 houses? I think they might be intriguing. What do you say? You have nothing to lose, man. They get lit up and you can find back to that perfect storm scenario where a seller's motivated and things have slowed a little. It could way outweigh waiting. But you've got to get into conversation and know what they want and need for you to be super compelling.
Absolutely. Anyway, just to go through the numbers, because we always do, 370 active in Fulton County, 170 under contract. Hang on, I got too many windows open here. There we go. 170 pending, 72 active under contract, and we closed 126. Quite drastic difference over previous weeks. But I honestly just think it's the Thanksgiving holiday. DeKalb County, 205, 47 active under contract, 116 pending, and 100 closed. They actually, the last 2 weeks have done 100, but it's still down from previously. If I hit Cobb County, I think you're going to see the same story. Only 209 active properties as of this morning in Cobb County, 42 active under contract, 121 pending, and 105 closed. We can jump through all these, but I think there's not really a story in the numbers right now, Rick. I think the story is the fact that Thanksgiving just makes for disruptive real estate predicting and trends and data, and we just got to wait and see what comes next week. My guess is we might actually see a spike because people were waiting until after the holiday, right?
Well, and I'd also recommend everyone take a deep breath and dismiss the belief that December has to be slow. I mean, the difference between average and superstar in our business is a couple of transactions in a month. And so historically, I've been in the business 25 years, and when I was pounding the pavement early on, December was historically one of my better months. but it was because I worked my ass off in November, inspired and motivated, and compelled people to close before the end of the year. They claim homestead exemption. I mean, come up with as many reasons, why now beats later. And, the argument might be, our interest rates going up or down? Are prices, truly going to dip or, based on the supply side, they're probably going to hold steady for a season. And then before we know it, we're back into spring. So anyway, don't let the belief that, seasonality affects your business always convey, because you'll miss opportunities.
I agree. And, historically, December is actually a good month for a lot of people. And there's a lot of reasons. You mentioned homestead. In the commercial industry, December is usually one of the best months because people are moving money for tax reasons. So if you've got investors that need to shelter some income this year, maybe they need to buy a rental property. Maybe somebody's trying to flip a 1031 exchange before the end of the year. It's worthy of a phone call. It's worthy of a relationship build to drum up some of that December business, right? So anyway,
100%.
All right. Inside of what's going on in the economy right now are what I would call mini opportunities. So mini being MINI. So here's what I mean by that. Last week, the interest rate dropped from 7.08 to 6.6, which they're saying is the largest drop faster this week than any time in the last 40 years. I don't know. That seems a little attention grabbing, but for a median price house, that changed the monthly payment of $100. So if you had somebody on the fence that didn't like what they were seeing on the MLS for what they could buy for their approved amount, it might have been worthy of a phone call saying, hey, if we can get you locked in the next 7 days, we might be able to get you a house that was worth $10,000, $20,000 more than what you were approved for 2 weeks ago. But if you were watching this and you knew about this, it could be an opportunity for you to make some phone calls. Do I think that $100 is going to drastically change a buying decision of the majority of the buyers out there? Probably not. But I think it would change a buying decision on a first-time home buyer that was really payment sensitive. I think it would change a buying decision on somebody that was looking at the cost of money directly related to what they were buying. What do you make of that?
Same. It's just the context of the energy you bring to the conversation. Anything that's positive, upbeat, and inspiring could tip the scales. So it's one more trigger point. So
here's what they're saying. Estimates the dip in rates boosted purchasing power by $12,000, giving a home buyer with a $2,500 monthly budget the ability to afford a $380,000 home versus a $368,000 home. So $12,000, I mean, if you looked in the MLS, $12,000 opens up a world of new houses to look at when you're searching, right? So
well, at certain price brackets, it's more impactful too. I mean, if you can afford up to $395 and you pick up 10,000, there are a lot of houses that hedge just above that and just above, the next big threshold. So it just depends on the price point and where that lands from a competitive play too, and what your inventory looks like.
Yeah, and what's the conversation I think we're trying to have is, are you in the game? Are you studying the market? Do you show up to these industry updates? Are you paying attention when interest rates move around? Are you going to your office team meeting and listening to what the mortgage brokers are saying in front of the room? Because there's opportunity if you see it, but you got to be in the game to see it, right? And that's really what that means. So today's call is really about skill set, right? Like, what do we do when somebody's saying the cost of waiting, whether a buyer or seller? That's a skill set. How do you handle that? This is around being in the game and using little mini opportunities like a mortgage rate dropping for a period of time, which, by the way, I expect the mortgage rate to do this over the next 6 months, right? So there's going to be little mini opportunities throughout the next 6 months. Well, the third one, Rick, is this. What's hot and what's not with today's contract terms? Well, the way we write contracts and position our offers, or what we choose to accept as a listing agent, has everything to do with the current economic conditions. So 6 months ago, a year ago, the way the contracts are going to look drastically different than what they look like today. So what's hot inside of the contracts is a skill set. How do you position your contracts to win? You know, I remember, Rick, when I started selling real estate in 1999, I didn't know really how to negotiate, but I knew that most houses sold for around 95% of what they were listed for. So I kind of was able to set an expectation with a buyer that, hey, we're probably going to land at around 5% off the asking price. So let's offer 8% off. Let's offer 10% off. See if we can find a way to meet in the middle to get you that 95% of the asking price. And that was kind of a strategy back then. Nowadays, a year ago, it was like, hold on, let's see how high we got to go to get this thing under contract. But today's day and age, we're not selling for full asking price. We are selling at discounted asking prices again. So what would you think the rule of thumb is? How would you coach somebody to negotiate right now?
To be perfectly honest, I wouldn't say a rule of thumb is really the way to do it, in the sense that every house is unique and different, every lot unique and different, every neighborhood unique and different. If it's homogenous and, you know, it's let's just, for instance, a Pulte neighborhood where there's basically 5 styles of homes with 5 different facades, and, you know, then it comes down to lot, location, and, you know, upgrades. And those are the differentiating factors. I would say a year ago, you just couldn't be very discerning in how you navigate and negotiate. You're probably going to have to pay if it fits the, you know, checks the box and fits your needs, because that's just the market we were in. Today, I think you've earned the right to be a professional again and discern subtle things that make one house more valuable than another, and utilize that information in your negotiation. The most important thing to do is illustrate why your position is supported and valid. And so what I find agents back in the day used to do is send over a cover letter that said, hey, look forward to working with you. It was so great the last time and hope it works. And, you know, zero justification, no information around their buyer and who and what they are and their motivation and what they like or didn't like. There was no story. And then there was no data. And so if you don't hit the story or the data, you miss the emotional and intellectual context of a leveraged negotiation. Yeah. So I would say it's highly circumstantial, and you have to look at the trends in a particular community, and they're all behaving differently. Some haven't wavered at all. Some have waffled a little, days on market. Exploit the things that make your offer look most attractive, and especially unique to the house your client wants versus the competition.
So what I'm hearing you say, Rick, is be a professional, study the market, study the things that go into how you're advising your buyer on how to offer, and then position that research in a cover letter to make your case when you present the offer.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Here's another, just a side note. I just texted my son to see if they're doing it actively. He's at Supreme Mortgage now, working there, but there is a float down. So not only do rates dip, but if the concern is, oh, now the trajectory is down, which could, I mean, is it going to be 5 next month? I really doubt it. But, you know, what crystal ball tells truth, you know, all truths all the time.
We're all guessing at this point.
But what they have, make sure that your lender that you choose has a float down option that, hey, lock the best rate you can today, knowing you have the ability to capture the market of the moment right before closing. And again, it's about inspiration, number one, and 2 is security. People don't want to lose. They're actually more afraid of losing than excited about winning. And that's where a good defense is tactical, strategic data. And then also being able to align with your alliance partners in a way that provides a safety net for uncertainties in, 30 days from now.
Yeah. Contingencies is what's hot right now. Well, obviously financing conditions weren't even in the contract a year ago. Now they're back in the contract, right? I would not be advising any buyer to remove those contingencies today. Inspections, I wouldn't be advising to remove those. Now, could it be a really hot property and you had to remove those? Yeah. But I'm speaking in general terms. Here's a question for you, Rick. Would you take a house off the market with the contingency of selling it, of the buyer selling their house right now? I realize I'm asking opinion here.
So I'm not sure I fully grasp. So you're saying if I'm the
I want to buy
seller,
your listing, but I got to sell my house first, would you take a contract with a contingency of me selling my house?
highly circumstantial, it depends on terms and conditions. If you pave the way for them to have a soft landing on the place, they may or may not have a house yet. So maybe it buys them time with some security. Maybe you employ a little bit of non-refundable earnest money with an extension privilege in there for another 30 or 60 days, and then make sure they have a backup plan around a bridge loan or some strategy that they don't lose their money unless they've really run the course and it's worth it. So here's what I'm really saying. There are circumstances where every deal makes sense. It takes two people to come together, and you have to understand their needs and wants first.
But I'd also translate, a year ago, you would have said, no.
Hell no.
Now
because it'll sell tomorrow.
It's a consideration, right? And contingencies are back in the contract. Concessions are back. I will tell you, unless you were selling real estate, I don't even know if it really happened in 07. I don't think so. I mean, you probably had to go back into early 90s to find out concessions where sellers actually paid points to buy down interest rates. I don't think it's been on the contract in 20 years. Well, all of a sudden we got sellers paying points on the contracts again. And that's hot right now, right? That's a part of the negotiation. Are you skilled in being able to put that together?
It just requires creativity to win. That's the thing. And it requires, the secret to creativity isn't that you're a genius, is that you ask really good questions.
There you go. Assumable.
Interrogate the other agent.
We were laughing at our top 10% mastermind because we all believe this can be a thing, but nobody knows anybody that's done it yet. So if somebody's done it, I need to know it so we can highlight you on this call. But I guarantee you somebody's got an assumable mortgage out there with a really good interest rate, and it's going to be marketed and could be a really big deal. I just haven't found a good success story here yet, but everybody's talking about it. Owner financing.
I think the catch might be, though, and I if I'm wrong, somebody correct me, but I think you can only assume the amount of the loan. So you have to cash flow the difference.
You got to pay the difference in cash.
Depending on when they bought, that could be the real deal breaker for some buyers who are FHA or VA sensitive and qualified.
So what's not escalation clauses, offering over asking price, those are not hot right now. Multiple offers are not hot, waiving contingencies. You get the game. It's a skill set thing. But understanding and being professional.
I mean, we have a listing right now that the biggest contention is that the walls are too dark. And we're just like, it's paint. So we're in there. We took it off the market for a week to paint the whole damn thing. And I understand the seller wanting let them pick the color. I'm like, we're not in that market anymore.
Nope.
We're not in that market. You have to fix everything. It needs to show it's gotta be value priced, and it's gotta be, Nordstrom quality.
Yep. I find this a silver lining in a economic conversation. It's saying because the housing market's slowing down a little bit, it's actually fixing the builder inflation and supply chain. It's allowing the vendors to catch up. We were looking at remodeling our basement. The quote was 16 weeks on cabinets. They had to wait 16 weeks just to get your cabinets ordered. So hopefully supply chain will get better for our industry. I see that being a big deal. This is interesting, Rick. It says where Atlanta housing experts expect prices to grow in 2023 and beyond, the South Side. What do you make of that?
There's just still available turnover and available land, and there proximity and traffic. I mean, I think there's a tremendous opportunity for sure. The density isn't quite there like it is on the north side. I think values and price per foot is just attractive. It's just all about schools and infrastructure for a given community in terms of the improved traction and attraction.
Yeah. I think you see the east side revitalization and reurbanization. And I think South Side's next, right?
Yeah, south and west are on, definitely upside.
There you go. So I find that interesting. Last thing I wanted to throw out, Rick, is, obviously, to being a successful real estate agent, you got to have a database, and working that database is foundation to success. But I just want to throw out the thought or the encouragement that it is a really smart strategy, and top producers institute it, successful agents practice it. They have a referral strategy to their business where they build a database of agents in other cities, whether they network to them, whether they social media strategy to them, whether they email market to them, whether they create networks of referral partnerships. And I just wanted to encourage everybody that in 2023, it might be a side project, but a good side project to work on the referral side of your business, because it's a very big part of the industry. What do you think?
100%. This is a people to people, belly to belly, face to face, business. The power of your network is the power of your net worth and the power of your capacity to create a saleable business. If you were to sell your business one day, you can't sell your past transactions. You can only sell the relational energy inside of a proven and predictable returning database. And so your database is your business, end of story. And the quality of the conversations that are managed and recorded and documented will dictate the value of your database and the capacity of the person you sell to reach into it and pick up right where you left off in the conversation so that they're relevant and in the know. If they have to call a name on a list and they have no intel or backdrop, it's worthless. You might as well pick up the phone book and just throw a name at them and hope that they recognize value in the name and listen long enough to give you a chance.
There you go. Titan was asking, how would you go about starting that referral business? First of all, you got to identify where the referrals are coming from. And for Atlanta, it's pretty easily identified as top 25 major metropolitan areas are referring business to Atlanta. And then you got to go find out who are the agents that are doing the production in those cities. And then it's just a matter of database. It doesn't mean you have to have a super tight relationship with all those agents. Just means you have to have name and face recognition when they think about it, and provide value. So I hope that helped, Titan. And then Pamela Howard said, I think she was talking about the assumable mortgage thing. She said, I think you can second mortgage what the assumable loan doesn't cover. And I agree with that. You just got to find that lender that'll do that, right? So anyway, there is your Monday industry update. Thank you for co-hosting, Mr. Hale. And I will see you guys
Glad to be
soon.
here.
Bye, guys.
Hope that was helpful, guys. Have a great one.